Above, the sky was covered in dark gray clouds, and below it, the grayish Rocky Mountains rose and fell. The only thing that wasn't gray was the light coming from the abyss, the place that was supposed to be the darkest. This light attracted the little rabbit closer. A blinding blue light pierced through the large trees. At first, it seemed like some film crew had set up lights to shoot a night scene, but that wasn't the case. The light came from a pregnant willow tree. No one knew which species the willow had mingled with, but its baby was round, pink, and definitely going to be shunned by the other trees for looking like that. Before ever anyone could say a word, the willow's baby had already been born. It opened its eyes, and right away, those eyes shone like car headlights, illuminating an entire area. It coughed angrily, wheezing and howling like it thought it had suffocated to death. Seriously, was that really necessary? It didn't even have a nose or mouth to suffocate with. After coughing, it started screaming, "Where am I? This place isn't my house. Why am I in the wild?" The willow had lived in this forest from the time it was just a seed until it became a single mother, so how could its baby not know this place? If it was confused, the only explanation was that this must be some kind of reincarnated main character. But reincarnated as a willow tree? Looking around, it saw nothing but a dark, deep forest, no sign of life anywhere. Then, it glanced upwards and noticed two green tentacles wiggling. Realizing that its hands had turned into two bright green tentacles, it let out a blood-curdling scream. Honestly, who wouldn't? If that were me, I would have passed out right there. This had to be a nightmare. It was probably just overworked, and now it was hallucinating. It decided to close its eyes and hoped that when it woke up, everything would be normal. Comforting itself, it went back to sleep. But no, things were not okay at all. After several naps, it woke up again, still a tree. Panic set in for the second time. What in the world was going on? I remember I only drank water and then choked to death. Oh, come on. How does someone manage to die like that? Truly a main character, even dying in a stupider way than normal people. It started rambling on, complaining about how it had been reincarnated as a tree. Normally, when getting transmigrated to Otherworld, I'd have reborn as a cool oppa with a harem. I don't even have 4 limbs now. How the hell I can do pull-up? After ranting for a while, anxiety began to creep in. Was it really going to be a tree for the rest of its life? Don't be sad, my friend. You're not just a tree. You're a tree that can talk. Not only could it talk, but it could also see. What kind of tree has eyes, right? Since reincarnating, it had been able to see everything clearly. Thanks to its 2 eyes, it knew it was stuck down in an abyss between 2 mountains towering hundreds of meters high. Trees with vision? It had never imagined that, but apart from its eyes and brain, nothing else about it was human anymore. Without a nose, it couldn't smell anything either, only sense its surroundings. It sensed the area around it with 50 willow branches, though for now, it could only control one. It stretched the one usable branch towards the sky, trying hard to move the others, but nothing happened. The remaining 49 branches were completely useless. Damn it! It felt like sitting at a computer for 24 hours straight, writing a story for dear readers, only to have them not even leave a like, making your arms go numb and uncontrollable. Despite being a round blob without ears, nose, or mouth, only its nose was out of commission. It could still talk and hear the animals bickering. If they stopped fighting and decided to bite him, he'd have no legs to run away with. Worst of all, if a woodpecker got itchy and decided to peck at him, he'd be done for. Wait, up there, is that a plane? So, it's still the modern era. Maybe he was in some parallel world with a civilization similar to the one back home. 1 minute you're drinking water peacefully, the next you're choking and turning into a short, stubby tree at the bottom of society. Just as he was fuming, 2 dumb bees kept buzzing around, making him itchy. Do you see any flowers on me? If I smack you, don't say I'm being funny. And he did just that. He swung a branch and ordered the bees to shut up. One blow tore the 2 brown bees apart. Not bad, he thought, kinda satisfying. Now the system appeared, announcing that the death of the 2 bees had earned him 0.1 evolution points for each. Through the system, he learned his name was still remained as UZU. Well, let's just call him U, the guy who died and got reincarnated. U, the reincarnated one, was now a mutated willow tree with a lifespan of 0.1 out of 20 years and only 1 skill, mutated branches. The system also revealed 2 ways to earn evolution points. The first was through photosynthesis, earning 0.1 points per day. The second was by killing other creatures. At least the name was the same. And the system asked if he wanted to use his evolution points. He scratched his chin in thought, although he wasn't sure if he even had a chin to scratch. The system said he could use 0.1 points to upgrade his branch. Finally, there was a way to control those useless branches. But earning evolution points wasn't easy either. Photosynthesis took time, and bees didn't fly by every day. Plus, the area around him was dark and full of dangers. He should feel lucky he didn't grow up in a park. If he had, people might have dug him up for research by now. First things first, he used the .2 points he had just earned to upgrade his skill. Now he could use 3 branches. Yuzu shouted in excitement, "Don't tell me this is my cheat! I'm not scared of anyone now." His first target, after leveling up, was the nearby beehive. He swung his branches, aiming straight at the hive. A hive that size probably had 100 bees, and he was ready. Just shut the hell up and become my evolution points. Half a month passed. No friends, just him diligently exercising his branches. It wasn't like he snapped the neck of anything that came close to earn evolution points, so why complain? Though a bit lonely, in exchange, he now had 50 flexible branches. He decided to test his strength on that rock over there. First, he grouped the branches into a sharp drilling point, then with lightning speed, stabbed toward the rock. The rock didn't budge, dust flying everywhere. The drill stopped. It still hadn't pierced through the rock. Though he hadn't cracked the stone, for a tree, that attack was enough to build some serious reputation. By using this, he could let enemy misjudge the distance, then could kill with one move. Half of a month had passed since he took root in this abyss, and after munching on dirt, he had grown a little taller. Though still short, he was definitely the most badass tree in the forest. His roots kept munching away at the soil day after day. Where once he feared being pecked to death by a woodpecker, now he had become the forest boss, gnawing on others to survive. On top of that, his lifespan kept increasing. As long as he didn't catch any diseases, he could live the full 20 years, and with enough evolution points, grow quickly. One day, he would become a world tree, reaching up to the heavens. Yuzu, now a willow, happily sang to himself. Being a tree meant he didn't need to eat or drink, didn't have to go to school for math, physics, or chefagry, and didn't have to go to work to get yelled at by his boss. What a dream come true. The only downside was he couldn't go anywhere, talk to anyone, scroll through Facebook, or watch manhwa recaps. But other than that, everything was fine. While he was singing and enjoying life, he suddenly heard chirping above him. A nest of 8 baby birds was demanding food, beaks wide open in protest. Yuzu, who killed anything for evolution points, had no idea why there was a bird's nest on his head. Turns out, a few days ago, while he was clearing away the trees blocking his sunlight, the nest from another tree had accidentally fallen and landed right on his head. These little critters weren't just noisy, they pooped all over him, relieving themselves right on Yuzu's head. These birds were probably peregrine falcons. Useless now when they were young, but when they grew up, they'd become ferocious beasts, 41 to 50 centimeters tall, with wingspans reaching 1 meter. Not only would they grow big and beautiful, but they'd also fly incredibly fast. Air dive is 270 to 360 kilometers per hour, faster than even a cheetah. Who knows, maybe even faster than the Flash. In short, it would be hard to catch them once they were fully grown. The world Yuzu had entered after his stupid death was filled with chaos. If there was a mutated willow tree, there might be a mutated banyan or guava tree too. Not just trees, animals could mutate as well. In short, this was a dangerous world full of mutations, completely different from Earth. The willow tree that Yuzu reincarnated into had no aerial combat ability whatsoever, but if he could keep these unruly birds around and train them to work for him, it would be like a tiger growing wings. It had been a month since his reincarnation, and aside from gaining 50 extra arms, he hadn't made much progress. Currently, he had no idea what to do next. In any case, in this dangerous world full of threats, his first goal was just to survive. Let's take you on a little tour of this world. On the right, there's a pack of bloodthirsty storm wolves, and on the left, a swarm of giant flying ants. Lots and lots of ants. Ahead is a spider queen bigger than a mountain. In this world of willows, there's definitely no Spider-Man, because this spider doesn't bite, it swallows whole people. Behind him was a squirrel. Wait, no, fire the cameraman for this nonsense. Zoom out a little, and you'll see 2 pitch-black fingers pointing at the small squirrel. About to squeeze it to death? Not really. From those 2 fingers, a giant hand lifted the entire tree. The owner of the massive hand was a huge gorilla, stuffing the whole tree into its mouth. On this side, some trees were even more pitiful, being chopped into pieces, halved, quartered, and more. Tree corpses lined both sides of a long trench, though it wasn't certain if it was a trench. Basically, a stretch of land had sunken down. What's scarier than a snake? A snake with a blade-like tail, and as a bonus, another sharp one on its head. That trench from earlier was the path it had left behind. This snake was a bit overweight, leaving the ground crushed as it passed. The weakest creature spotted after the squirrel was a white rabbit, happily hopping along in the snake's trench. But weak creatures shouldn't roam around like that. The rabbit hopped over a tree root and then right into one of Yuziu's branches. Its life ended there. Yuziu earned 0.6 evolution points for killing the rabbit. Recently, it had been hard to hunt forest animals. Of course, animals have sharp survival instincts, and the area around the willow tree was likely already marked as a danger zone for them. Today's rabbit was probably a tourist from another area, unaware of the danger. Its fate was to be presented by Yuziu to the noisy birds who were chirping loudly from hunger. Next, he should tear it apart and stuff pieces into each bird's mouth. They're still small, after all. Yuziu dropped the rabbit into the middle of the nest, and the birds pounced, tearing into their prey, blood and flesh flying everywhere. Wait a minute, are these really baby birds? How are they eating like that? Even adult birds don't eat like this. Yuziu looked up and thought, what an ugly way of eating. The issue wasn't whether they were cute while eating, but rather that birds don't eat like that. The system announced that photosynthesis had been completed, granting him 0.1 evolution points. Finally, he had accumulated 1 full point. The branches had all been upgraded, so now it was time to upgrade the roots, followed by the tree trunk. The system displayed, branches evolved 50-50, roots 0.9. The trunk only required 1 upgrade, but it hadn't been done yet. Yuziu didn't expect that upgrading the roots would also cost evolution points. It was almost laughable. What doesn't cost money? You pay, you get results. Those 9 roots must have some significant abilities if they required evolution points to upgrade. Yuziu began to daydream about a future where he could run around with his roots. The thought alone was thrilling. He used 1 evolution point to upgrade the first root. The selected root began to react. The first sensation was unbearable pain. Yuziu screamed and cried, tears and snot flowing everywhere. Turns out he did have a nose, but it couldn't smell, only drip snot. Yuziu's cries raised all the branches up into the sky. Below, his roots surged up from the ground. He had no idea what was happening, only that the pain was worse than childbirth. He writhed so much that the birds went into a frenzy, flapping and scattering in all directions. Finally, the pain stopped. The ground cracked open, and Yuziu was left panting heavily. That pain felt like having a power drill jammed into him. Just thinking about it made him break out in a cold sweat. He'd better get used to it. There were still 8 more roots to upgrade, each one bringing its own dose of suffering. He used his strength to pull the newly upgraded root out of the ground. The pain was worth it. The root was now bigger, longer, and more flexible. Spending 1 point on it turned out to be quite reasonable. The branches and roots operated based on logic, so Yuziu wondered if the tree trunk might work the same way. He didn't hesitate. He decided to test it out. He strained, trying to lift his trunk out of the ground. The result of this foolish attempt was a blinding pain. He screamed, feeling like his trunk was about to snap in half. The pain was unbearable, even worse than when he moved his roots earlier. Worse than childbirth. Probably comparable to the pain of getting kicked in the groin twice for the guys. Forget about that little experiment. The conclusion was clear. He couldn't move yet. He needed to evolve the remaining 8 roots and his trunk before he could know if movement was possible. His trunk, which held his round face, was like his heart. He had to protect it carefully. But that wasn't too difficult for him. Yuziu could turn himself into an impenetrable fortress if he wanted to. First things first, he buried his upgraded root back into the ground to make it look like a normal root. The big issue now was how to find enough points to upgrade all his roots and trunk. He had already spent all his accumulated points on upgrading the first root. He'd have to start gathering points again from scratch. Suddenly, a noise came from a nearby bush. He switched to combat mode, raising 2 branches in front of him like a human raising their fists in a defensive stance, ready to take on whatever came out of that bush. He waited, but no one came out. Yuziu parted the bushes and found a little fox, badly wounded. It wasn't clear if it was dead or not. He had expected an attacker, but here was just a fox lying there, which surprised him a bit. When he prodded the fox with a branch, its soft whimper startled him. So it wasn't dead yet. He scratched his chin, thinking, the black wounds probably meant it was poisoned. Killing the fox would earn him evolution points, but it was too badly injured. According to the system, killing nearly dead animals wouldn't count for points. As he debated what to do, The system notified him that the fluid in his branches could heal wounds, even neutralize poison and stop bleeding. However, after using the healing, the branch would return to a useless state. Why didn't the system mention that earlier? Well, now he had a plan. Yuziyu eyed the branch he was about to use. Here's the idea. Heal the fox with the branch, then when it's healthy again, kill it with his own hands. That way, he'd get the points, and then he could use the points to restore the branch. And as for the carcass, feed it to the birds. Genius. It might be a bit cruel, but someone's got to be ruthless. If you can't love, don't give hope. But from a practical standpoint, his plan was incredibly efficient. Yuziyu let the healing branch drip its fluid onto the fox. Drop by drop, the system identified the poisoned creature and began detoxifying and healing it. Yuziyu felt like he had just become the star doctor in a movie. The fox recovered, leaving him down one branch. Upon closer inspection, this fox wasn't ordinary. But then again, nothing in this world was normal, so it wasn't that surprising. Having fulfilled his role as a doctor, it was time to play the hunter. He aimed several branches at the fox, ready to send it off immediately. But the innocent fox, just saved, looked up at him with beautiful bright red eyes. If it knew its rescuer planned to kill it, it would have run away. But it didn't know and instead came closer, wagging its tail and rubbing against the willow tree. Around it, the branches were still pointed at it. Yuziyu, caught off guard, yelled, "Don't get friendly with me. Don't think acting cute will get you spared. Points are all that matter." Yet the fox kept rubbing against his trunk with a look of pure joy. He softened, his eyes gentled, and his face blushed. He kinda liked it. Yuziyu used a branch to lift the fox up. Screw the points, he thought. This cutie needs some cuddles. Maybe it was because he had been too long without any form of connection, being a lonely tree and all. Having some companionship, even from a fox, was making him happy. The crazy birds on his head didn't count. They just squawked for food and pooped on him. He raised the little fox to get a better look at his new adorable companion. Its ruby eyes and soft fur were just too cute. As Yuziyu was admiring the fox, it suddenly started glowing. He shouted, "Who the heck threw a flashbang?" Squinting, he looked again and saw the system notification. The fox had evolved thanks to the fluid from his branch. This system was great at delivering late information. What did it mean by evolution? Here's what it meant. The little fox had now donned a flaming red coat, and its demeanor had shifted, no longer as cute as before. According to the stats provided by the system, this wasn't a fox anymore. It was a mutated red fox and had reached level 4, with a special skill, Charm Eyes. Evolving a pet, this was just like being a Pokemon trainer. Yuziyu was beyond excited. Caught up in admiring the fox's new appearance, he finally noticed the system's stat sheet. Huh? Levels? Ranks? He hadn't paid attention before. Time to check his own status. Though he didn't fully understand how the system ranked things, he saw that the willow tree was currently at beginner stage 9. He was 5 levels ahead of the red fox. Who would have thought that the branch's fluid had the power to evolve animals? The higher the beginner stage, the clearer the abilities became. To put it simply, the willow tree's fluid could spread mutation like a contagious disease, except instead of killing the infected, it made them more powerful. More importantly, thanks to this level system, he could now see the strength gap between himself and his enemies. From now on, he could work his way up the ranks, climbing higher and higher. Finally, he felt like his tree life was starting to resemble the typical isekai protagonists. But let's be honest, most main characters get hit by trucks to reincarnate. Who dies by choking on water like him? Wait a minute, how did this fox get here? Was it being hunted by humans for its fur? The earlier wound seemed to be from an arrow, so who pulled the arrow out? Thinking back, since his reincarnation, he hadn't encountered a single human. Being reborn in an abyss who would come to hang out with him, the thought sent shivers down his spine. If he ever met poachers, he'd have to kill them immediately. Until he was strong enough, though, maybe it'd be best to pretend to be just a friendly tree. Yeah, better not go around showing off that he could talk, or he'd end up in a museum soon enough. Suddenly, the red fox looked up, as if sensing something, then bolted toward the direction it had noticed. Yuziyu yelled into the distance, "Who's there?" From far away, 2 village girls approached. At first glance, they looked like good people. They were carrying fruit and a bucket of water, heading toward the willow tree. What kind of idiots would climb down a 1,000-meter-deep abyss with water and fruits like this? Anyway, humans had appeared. He needed to hide the giant egg immediately. There's no way a tree should have a perfectly round egg nestled in its trunk. Yuziyu was puzzled. Why were there humans in this place? The two girls looked at the willow tree and called out loudly, "Father!" Yuziyu froze, staying completely still. The girls continued, "We came to visit you, Dad." "What the hell?" Yuziyu screamed in his mind. "When did I get a wife and kids? Don't you dare just claim me as your dad because you think I look handsome." The situation became clear when the two girls lit 3 incense sticks at the base of the tree. Turns out, the fruit they brought was an offering. They clasped their hands together and began to pray. Seriously, out of all places to bury someone, they had to bury their dad at the foot of this willow tree. You felt like something wasn't quite right. The girls prayed for a long time. Then, the younger sister grabbed an apple from the offering pile. "What kind of kids are these? Who asked you to sit there and eat? Get out of here!" For crying out loud. After eating, the younger sister pulled her older sister along, suggesting they go take a bath. These two must be out of their minds. Why bathe down in this dangerously deep abyss? Just go home. Hearing them talk about bathing, Yuziyu peeked out. After all, he was still a man, even if he was a tree now. How could he miss such a rare opportunity? Before long, the younger sister had already stripped and jumped into the water, while the older sister hesitated a bit, but soon started undressing and slowly waded in as well. The water was cold, but the scene was too hot. Though I swear, I'm not really into this kind of thing. Really. Everyone else was seeing the beautiful scene, but of course, the main character wasn't. As the two sisters splashed around and played, the willow tree's trunk shook uncontrollably. Yuziyu was fuming, grinding his teeth in frustration. Who the hell planted these trees in front of him? 2 beautiful girls, and the main character didn't get to see either of them. "Wait for me, ladies. Wait while I change my position. Heh, he thought. Pervert much, huh? Driven by the desire to watch the girls bathe, Yuziyu strained to move the willow tree. The reward for his efforts was a wave of excruciating pain that made him scream like he was being tortured. After screaming, he started sobbing, not from physical pain, but because he couldn't watch the girls bathe. Night fell. The red fox slept soundly on a rock, and Yuziyu shut his tree mouth tight. Finally, the 2 village girls left. He cracked his eyes open, thinking to himself, "Don't come back here." Not only had he gone through the trouble of hiding, but he'd also cried over missing the beautiful scene, so of course he didn't want them to return. The older sister suddenly exclaimed, "Oh no, I think we forgot something," then put on a gentle smile and softly said, "We'll come back to visit you, Dad." Yuziyu blushed. "Calling me Dad, huh? If you like people calling you Dad, then stop trying to peek at them bathing." Maybe missing the chance earlier was fate. A week passed, and the peaceful Reborn began to show signs of becoming less tranquil. A large eagle screeched loudly in the sky. It was locked in battle. Its opponents were 8 falcons at beginner stage 3, all charging at it like bullets. They dove straight at the massive eagle. The eagle was smart, tucking in its wings to protect its head and belly. Once the falcon's attack was over, the eagle emerged. It was clear this bird was dangerous. This mutant eagle was only 2 years old, yet it already possessed terrifying combat skills. First was its deafening scream. The eagle opened its beak and screeched at the falcons, sending waves of sound that made them falter in the air. From behind the eagle, the red fox sprang into action, sinking its teeth into the eagle's wing. The red fox was still at beginner stage 4, just like when it first evolved. The eagle, slightly shocked by the bite, quickly used one of its massive, razor-sharp talons to grab the red fox. One talon was enough to trap the wolf, and it squeezed so hard that the wolf's bones were about to snap. Once it had the wolf, the eagle dove toward the ground with tremendous force, the impact sounding like an explosion. As the dust cleared, the red fox lay beneath the eagle's claws, mouth agape, head covered in blood. The victorious eagle was preparing to tear the wolf apart when it sensed danger approaching. Its attention was drawn to a glowing, pregnant willow tree emitting an eerie light. It screeched in warning, but before it could close its beak, the willow jabbed it directly, feathers flying everywhere. The eagle died instantly from a single blow. This eagle was no ordinary bird. It was a beginner stage 7 mutant. The willow tree Yuziyu inhabited was only at beginner stage 9, and yet the system granted him 70 points for defeating the eagle. After giving the falcons some of the branch fluid, they had become less useless, growing much more capable. The red fox, after being saved, stuck close to Yuziyu. Now he had a capable team of pets. That eagle had been eyeing the willow's egg for a week, and today he finally took it down. Yuziyu thought it might be wise to hide his presence to avoid attracting more monsters. If a beginner stage 7 eagle was already this tough, facing something stronger would spell disaster for the main character. He needed to grow stronger. This branch was filled with creatures more powerful than the willow tree. He had to be careful. Not only did the willow need to grow stronger, but so did the pets. That way, if he ever released them to fight, he wouldn't have to worry about them getting bitten back. The falcons had reached beginner stage 3, and the wolf was now at beginner stage 4. They were useful now, and who knows how formidable they'd become after more evolution. You guys did great today. Open your mouths. Here comes some milk. He chuckled. Delicious chemicals. Enjoy your meal. After eating, not only will you be full, but you'll also level up. Everyone wants a bite, but not everywhere sells this kind of stuff. Some are so addicted, they resort to stealing it from others. Just like in this case, while feeding the pets, suddenly a fast strike came from the sky. Too quick to see clearly, just a flash of yellow light shooting straight towards the willow tree. Careful, you shouted, but it was too late. The attack just now bombarded an entire section of the forest, its power so terrifying that dust flew higher than the cliff itself. As the dust began to settle, it revealed a round shape with 2 bright eyes glowing from within. Even though he quickly used tree roots to defend, half of Yu's foliage had been sliced clean off. The cut was so sharp that even the large roots were torn apart, let alone the willow leaves. Last time, simply moving the trunk was painful enough, so imagine how much worse it felt losing a whole branch. The system continuously reported the damage. Today, the little ones coming for the willow tree's essence weren't just the giant eagle, but also a monstrous snake with a blade on its head and its tail wrapped tightly around the freshly chopped willow branch. The snake raised its tail, showing a sharp axe blade at the end. So that's how it used the axe to chop off the willow branch, blatantly stealing the essence. The question was, how did you not notice such a gigantic snake? Was it because he had just defeated the eagle and let his guard down, or was this snake capable of hiding its presence? It's natural for snakes to ambush and suddenly bite their prey. It's their instinct. But who would have thought a snake this huge could hide so well? Yu was extremely tense. He ordered the system to pull up the snake's information. The system informed him that the snake in front of him was no ordinary one. It had reached beginner stage 9 with a hidden passive ability of total concealment. Aside from that damned passive, it also had fangs that could pierce steel and an axe blade that could slice through anything. This snake was no different from a woodcutter, way beyond the willow tree's level. The sad part was he couldn't even peep at girls bathing, let alone run away. The only way left was a direct fight or death. Facing the snake, Ziyu was extremely anxious, but the red fox was even more tense. It opened its mouth and cursed at the snake. Mind you, Little Red, the wolf, was only at beginner stage 4, and according to nature documentaries, wild animals are great at sensing danger and fleeing in time. Yet, Little Red wasn't running away. Little Red growled, remembering how it had been bitten by a snake before. Luckily, Ziyu had given it sap to heal. Turns out it held a grudge against the snake for that past bite and was also afraid the snake might kill its master, so it didn't flee. The snake ignored Little Red. "You, a shabby mutt, dare to threaten me?" it thought. "Once I'm done, I'll deal with both you and your master." The snake picked up the willow branch, and oh, how fresh it was. It munched on it with a crunch. Yu broke out in a cold sweat. Damn it! Eating half of my stuff and looking so satisfied while doing it? After finishing its meal and feeling incredibly pleased, the snake darted toward the willow tree, planning to take another bite to satisfy its craving. Yu ordered his pets to fall back. The snake, with its axe-bladed head, charged at the willow tree, launching attacks of immense quality, sending dust flying everywhere. After that powerful headbutt, the snake felt something was off. It didn't feel like it had chopped through the tree. Of course, it hadn't. Who gave you permission to cut it? Ziyu had used 1 evolution point to unlock an additional root, using 2 roots to block the snake's axe blade. But it wasn't easy because the snake was incredibly strong. The axe was so close to his face, he could barely hold it back. Damn it, you bastard snake. I'm beginner stage 9 too, and you dare to show off in front of me? Just because you're bigger? If you were my size, I'd slap you to death right now. I'm not as tall, but if I grab a stool, I'll slap you for sure. The snake, enraged by the insult, raised its tail, ready to slash at Ziyu's throat to shut him up. Yu unlocked another root, making it 3. Using the roots, he wrapped around the snake. Don't think just because I'm not a snake, I don't know how to wrap. I'm an octopus on land. Yu used all his strength to unleash every single root. It was definitely painful. Very painful, but better than dying. A cornered dog jumps over the wall, and a cornered tree pulls out its roots. The ground around the willow tree cracked open, and all 9 roots ripped out from the earth. "You're dead now, snake. I'm going to stab you with these roots." Ziyu poured his power into the roots, aimed for the belly while shouting, "Get out of my territory." As he finished speaking, the roots pierced into the snake's body, causing it to open its mouth and scream in pain, blood splattering out. You looked up, completely shocked. Even after all that, the attack still didn't pierce the snake's skin. Was this reality or a dream? The snake had chopped through the willow like it was cutting through bananas, but the willow's full power only managed to dent its skin. Both were beginner stage 9, yet it seemed the heavens favored some and hated others. Ever since the protagonist choked on water and almost died, I knew he was the underdog. Though it didn't penetrate, the snake still felt the pain. Blood filled its mouth as it stared at the willow. Terrifying, but he couldn't let it know he was scared. If one strike didn't work, he just hit it again. You readied his roots for another battle, and the snake too was poised to charge, ready to go all out. But then, for some reason, it paused, reconsidered, and then turned around, slithering away. "What is this snake? So fickle," Ziyu muttered. The willow tree withdrew its branches. "Just a bit more. Damn it! Damn it! I would die here!" His face cracked badly, with pieces falling to the ground. Ziyu remained tense, thinking he was about to die. Luckily, the snake got moody and left. If he had shown fear back there, the snake would have probably chewed his head off like it was munching on broccoli. The battle had ravaged the area, leaving the surroundings of the willow tree barren. The mark of the snake's body still imprinted on the ground, ensuring that what just happened wasn't some nightmare. The pets gathered around to check on the willow's health, but Ziyu said he was fine, though his mind was filled with many thoughts. First, letting the snake escape meant it would definitely come back for more later. Second, he realized just how weak he was. He couldn't even protect himself, let alone the pets. Another thought, there's no way he could suddenly become stronger in such a short time, but the snake, having absorbed its meal, would surely evolve. If he didn't improve his strength, their next encounter wouldn't be a friendly visit. It'd be the end of him. Half the tree had been gnawed away, the face was cracked, and nothing seemed right. Just as he was feeling stuck, the system informed him he could rank up by spending 10 evolution points. Did he want to evolve? What kind of question is that? This system always waits until you're on the brink of death to give instructions. What if he had died already? Who would the system instruct then? You let out a scream. "I knew I could rank up. See, Fox? See it now?" "Yeah, I see it." The fox looked at his master like it wanted to reply. "I see your nuts, scaring everyone like that." After today, more terrifying creatures would come looking for his essence, but he would break every single one of their necks. What happened today would never happen again. Rank up, of course. What are we waiting for? I've got over 60 points, he thought. The evolution process began, and the light from the system was so bright it almost blinded him. The tree's stolen parts were restored by the system, including the branches. Evolve, and then evolve some more. There was no stopping it. Getting stronger was the only way to survive in this world. The strong dictate the rules. That's the law of the jungle. Winds gusted from the willow tree, almost blowing Little Red away. Ziyu would continue evolving endlessly to become a giant tree. Today was just the first evolution, the start of his survival journey. The pets huddled together, watching their master transform. A dazzling light filled the entire forest, brighter than when Ziyu first merged with the willow tree, with a slight greenish hue. The evolution process ended, and the willow tree stood lush and full. The egg remained intact, not losing a single piece. The willow tree's appearance had changed significantly. It was larger and far more intimidating. At that moment, the willow tree had reached rank 1, increasing its maximum lifespan from 20 to 200 years, and he still got 51 evolution points. You looked up at the canopy. Everything had been restored, and not only that, the trunk had gotten a little thicker. Looking over at his pets, wait, what's this? Little Red had reached beginner stage 7, and the birds had leveled up to beginner stage 5. Their appearances were completely different now. They were clearly influenced by the dazzling light from the willow tree's evolution. You ordered the birds to search for the snake's whereabouts. They immediately shot off like Pikachu. Ziyu was startled. What kind of birds fly like bullets? There's no doubt they could pierce through other creatures. No need to actually stab anyone. Just flying in a basic circle around them would make the others dizzy and pass out. It wasn't just the birds. Little Red had gotten much stronger too, looking far more mature. No more cuteness, huh? You felt a surge of vitality. He quickly opened the system to check. After ranking up to rank 1, surely the skills would have changed. Before he could even look, his thoughts were interrupted by screams. Save us! 2 girls were running full speed, one of them injured. Behind them, a cloud of dust was rising, and whatever was chasing them must have been terrifying. These were the protagonist's 2 stray daughters. They had kept their promise to return to visit their father, and not only that, they brought a whole menagerie with them. However, this grand beastly parade wasn't exactly friendly. Just why they are all chasing after us. None of them have the answers. Turn out it wasn't because these wild beasts were drawn by the energy radiating from the willow tree's evolution. Who else but me? Obviously, it's me. These creatures are just snacks for me now. Eagle, snake, whatever. I can handle them all, let alone this ragtag bunch. The willow tree emanated an overwhelming killing intent, asserting its dominance. The wild animals charged toward the 2 girls. A wild boar was right on their heels. It was about to be over for them. A massive explosion, dust filled the air, and the 2 girls were blown aside. They turned around, mouths agape. Close your mouths, girls. There's dust everywhere. How can you stand there with your mouths open? The explosion wasn't from the boar charging, but from the boar getting charged. As the dust settled, Little Red stood triumphantly on the boar's body, which was 3 or 4 times its size. Little Red turned its head back, as if to say, "Rest easy, girls." But that affectionate look only made the 2 scream in terror. "Do you still think you're cute, you fox?" The crazed beasts rushed toward Little Red, thinking they could overwhelm it with numbers, but each one was swiftly pierced through the skull. The falcons had returned, standing alongside Little Red. Now the 2 girls realized they were being protected. The wild beasts didn't dare advance any further. "All right, everyone clear out. Make way for me. I've got to show these beasts who the real boss is." Ziyu, full of swagger, uprooted the willow tree. "These animals think they can mess with me? I'll show them what's what." All the roots and branches lashed out toward the wild beasts. The 2 stray daughters fainted on the spot. Yu taunted the beasts, claiming he could take them all on. The animals, irritated, roared and charged at the roots en masse. A leopard came first, only to be instantly granted death by Ziyu. Blood splattered onto the face. To Ziyu, these beasts were just walking bags of points. Next was a fat hippo, 50 points. Then a rat, 20 points. A rhino, 30. Add this one and that one too. Though these were mutant beasts, they had their own skills. For instance, this bat had slick dodges and could even use sonic booms to stun a bit. Not bad, but not enough. One stab and they were dead. Next up was a crazed bull. It charged fiercely, but even though Ziyu struck hard, the bull's skull didn't break. It flexed its muscles in some strange way, blocking the attack. Looks like not all these creatures are total pushovers. Might as well keep a few for raising. You used the roots to capture some of the beasts. The chosen ones earned the right to live, while the rest, they could live in their next life. He slaughtered them mercilessly, blood everywhere. After this, he'd probably be filthy rich. From morning until night, Ziyu harvested the beasts before finally taking a break and dragging the selected ones back. The most important thing was done, but now what to do with these 2 fainted stray daughters? Letting them go might risk exposing his whereabouts, putting him in danger. But killing them? That would make him no better than a beast. If the villagers noticed their absence, they'd start searching. Eventually, even the military might get involved. Worst case scenario, he'd end up caged in a zoo with Shin's family pointing at him. Being in the zoo might be lucky, though. Getting into a museum would mean he'd never breathe again. An idea suddenly struck him. Hopefully, it would work. The older sister slowly opened her eyes. The first thing she saw was an eerie, disgusting-looking tree. She screamed, waking her younger sister. Yu extended a sharp root toward them, and the 2 stray daughters clung to each other, crying and screaming. If it were me, I'd have just fainted again and let the tree do whatever. It's not like I could resist anyway. Yu waved the root around. Was he choosing to become a killer now? No, wait, he was using the root to write on the ground. Luckily, he wasn't illiterate in his past life. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to write out these words. It's Dad. The 2 girls froze, staring at the willow tree. What kind of reaction is this? Please, just believe my lie. I really am your father. I literally just saved you from danger earlier, so trust me and make me happy, will you? Yu glared. If they didn't believe him, well, the only option would be to play the villain and silence them for good. The younger sister couldn't hold back and shouted, "What's my name?" No, wait. Change it to something harder. What's my biggest secret? I bet you don't know that. We may not know, but the system sure does. Piece of cake. The one with her hair tied up is Ha Tio Lin, 14 years old. Oh, and she's crushing on some guy from the neighboring village. The one with her hair down is Ha Tio Than, also 14, and she dropped out of school to work and support the family. These two are twins. Now that we know, let's write it out. You like Ernu from the neighboring village. The younger girl screamed out of embarrassment. Why did she ask? Only to have her secret exposed. The older sister smirked. Oh, I know him, and the younger one yelled, No, I don't like him. Stop lying, kid. One look, and it's obvious. This embarrassing secret had only been shared with her father. Even her sister didn't know. It had to be their father, no doubt about it. Let's see. Ziyu used the branches to hand the two stray daughters a pair of wands made from the willow tree. The purpose? There wasn't any. Just a welcome gift. Take it or leave it. Even he himself didn't know why he made it. You pondered. Humans are a species that live off emotions, so they're deeply afraid of losing loved ones. Their father being buried beneath this willow tree would make them see this as fate. That short-lived father might have been part of why Ziyu ended up here in the first place. He placed a branch gently on Xiaoqing's head. Upon closer inspection, the girl had dark circles under her eyes. She must be exhausted. Yu, speaking on behalf of their father, offered words of thanks and apology. Xiaoqing broke down in tears. If he could speak, why was he writing earlier, anyway? In the quiet of the night, it seemed that the tree and the girl connected emotionally. Perhaps the father's body and soul had merged with the willow tree. That might be it. The night grew darker, and the falcons and Little Red sat calmly by the tree. Xiaoqing began narrating the state of the world to her father. Starting 2 months ago, strange mutations began occurring in animals across the earth. These mutated beasts started attacking humans. The cause, according to the news, was a mysterious substance in the air that caused creatures to evolve. It was described as something akin to spiritual energy or magic. You had never imagined the world was undergoing such upheaval. Xiaoqing admitted that she didn't believe it at first, but now she did. After all, her father had merged with a willow tree and was talking to her at this very moment. She turned back with a warm smile. His face turned beet red from embarrassment. How awkward. The older sister was gentle and understanding, while the younger one was a bit hyper. What was she thinking? Feeding the wolves in the cage like dogs. Did she forget how they chased her earlier? The wolves went wild, drool hanging from their mouths, though it was unclear if they craved the meat in the girl's hand or wanted to tear her apart. But one glance told you they weren't tame creatures, just obedient because they were locked in cages. Suddenly, behind Xiaoling, glowing eyes appeared. Little Red glared at the wolves in the cage, and they immediately froze in fear, not daring to make a sound. They quietly ate what Xiaoling had offered. This younger girl sure was brave. She wasn't even afraid of Little Red anymore, treating her like an old friend. They are eating obediently. Xiao Hong, look, as expected, you're amazing. She treated it as she's familiar with them. Besides the 4 wolves, there was also a white crane and a little monkey that was set free and instantly started causing chaos. The buffalo that had blocked the root strike earlier was surprisingly gentle, even letting people lie on it to rest. It must have been protesting earlier just to follow the crowd. And let's not forget the honey badger, still thrashing around like a maniac, as noisy as ever. True to its infamous reputation in the animal kingdom, it didn't know fear. Well, that one could be dealt with later. For now, it was time to check the system and assess the situation. There were 149 evolution points, and all branches and roots had been unlocked. The interesting part was the new hidden passive ability of the plant-based race, the ability to self-heal. In addition to that, there's a new skill, Dense Fog Barrier, which helps conceal oneself, and another skill, Illusion, which causes hallucinations within the fog. This skill set is perfect for making a ghost movie. Now new enhance shall begin. The real game was just beginning. Though still at rank 1, the skills had evolved. All the branches and roots had been fully unlocked, and they could continue to be upgraded for more strength. The newest addition was the hidden passive ability of the plant-based system, Self-Recovery. Right now, Ziyu had 149 evolution points, plenty to upgrade freely. On top of that, the new skill, Dense Fog Barrier, helped him hide, while the illusion skill created hallucinations within the fog. Ziyu was thrilled. This new skill set was incredibly cool and perfect for pulling off some supernatural stunts. Without any storms or disruptions, he could almost completely disappear. Do you wish to use 20 evolution point to activate the dense fog barrier and illusion skill? The answer was definitely a yes. Activate. The branches glowed, and from the canopy, a faint fog spread out like smoke. Actually, illusion wasn't a type of rare ability. Many plants had it, but what was truly valuable here was the thick fog gradually spreading around him. In no time, the fog enveloped the entire area, making Ziyu reminisce about his earlier travels. This scene, it felt like he was on a tour of the underworld or something. Even at rank 1, he was already this powerful. What would the future hold? He remembered the snake from earlier. If he found it now, he'd fry it with some chili right away. But cooking it would only draw more crazed beasts, and that'd be exhausting. That snake would definitely end up on the dinner plate, but not today. First, he had to ensure there were no strong creatures nearby. As long as the timing and conditions were right, he would kill the snake on the spot. Suddenly, visibility dropped below 1 kilometer, and both Xiaoling and Little Red were thrown into confusion, their fur standing on end as they went on high alert. Calm down. I'm right behind you. It seemed that the illusion skill grew stronger the closer one was to the willow tree. To prevent the girls from inhaling too much fog and getting trapped in illusions, Ziyu had Little Red lead them down the mountain. Before they left, he made sure to warn them not to reveal anything about what happened today. Little Red carried the sisters on its back and galloped away. For the two girls, today's events were unbelievable. In the morning, they were chased by beasts. By night, they were being escorted by one. Riding on Little Red's back felt like flying through the forest. The older sister gently stroked Little Red's soft fur and softly whispered, "Thank you." Like its master, Little Red beamed with joy when praised by a girl. The dense fog barrier was ready, and the stray daughters had been sent away. Now, it was time for the second evolution. He started with 50 branches, then moved on to the roots. Finally, it was time to focus on the two new skills. The entire cliffside was soon covered in thick fog, and that night, the monsters within a 10-kilometer radius could hear the whispers of the earth. Their survival instincts told them that a dangerous creature was rising, a tyrant that could one day lead them. The light of dawn barely managed to break through the fog, signaling the arrival of a new day. Beneath the tangled mass of giant roots was the image of a massively muscular willow tree. The evolution process continued until morning. In front of the wolf cage, a beast stomped so hard it cracked the ground. It caught the wolves' attention, and with a mighty roar, it left them frozen in place. Wait a minute, why did this beast look a bit like Little Red? Indeed, the beast was Little Red, as seen through the wolves' imagination. Since they were so close, they had fallen under the influence of the illusions and were barking like crazy. Ziyu's new skill was practically like giving the beasts a dose of some illegal substance, leaving the wolves barking their heads off. Both dense fog barrier and illusion had been upgraded to level 2, which was why they were so effective. It wasn't just the wolves. The gentle buffalo from earlier was also caught in a love-struck illusions, prancing around while giggling. Words just couldn't describe this scene. The skill upgrades were sufficient for now, and even if they weren't, he couldn't upgrade further since he only had 24 evolution points left. The hidden passive ability for self-recovery required 50 points. The willow's roots had dug over 100 meters deep, reaching the underground water veins. Through the roots, Ziyu could clearly feel the energy being pumped in from the earth. 100 meters underground, there was a river and an unexplored cave with an unclear structure. Should he call it the Spirit River? What did spirit have to do with this name anyway? Morning had come, so it was time to hide the roots. Ziyu slammed each root into the ground, making a racket as if he wanted everyone to know where they were. The falcons were sent to search for the snake once more. Yu barked out some orders at the glowing face. He nodded. "Is that so? Can't find traces of the axe snake. Seems like the strike from earlier wasn't hard enough. The snake had enough strength left to flee quickly, making it impossible to track. Not finding it was no excuse. That snake had eaten half the branches, and it would surely come back, drawn by its addiction." As he fumed over the snake, the wolves wouldn't stop howling. Yu raised a branch and gave 3 of them a solid smack. "Don't disturb me now." This act of pet abuse was seen and condemned by his 2 stray daughters, who had arrived unexpectedly. "Oh no, why are you back so early? If you'd come later, I might have beaten those wolves to bits." Xiaoqing crawled into the wolf cage, startling Ziyu. "Hey, that's dangerous." Xiaoqing carefully bandaged the wolves. At first, they growled in resistance, but her dedication soon calmed them down. Sorry, it must hurt, right? Very soon it won't hurt anymore. You couldn't have done that. Maybe he could have in the past, but after facing death so many times, his temperament had changed. Still in shock from seeing the wolves so calm, he was shocked a second time when he noticed Xiaoling wrestling over a piece of beef jerky with the honey badger. Fighting over jerky in front of a buffalo? That's cruel. But wait, when did the badger escape? He grabbed it by the body. This time, he'd tie both its hands and feet for good measure. The branch had already been torn apart from its biting and scratching. That badger was truly wild, thrashing and howling even in the grip of a monstrous willow. Xiaoling, in her usual style, shared some jerky with the honey badger, and both chewed happily together. The only one not happy here was the buffalo. The gangster badger, true to its reputation, reciprocated by giving Xiaoling 2 seeds, which were probably edible. She accepted them with a smile. Then Xiaoling turned and gave the buffalo an apple, likely to comfort it. The monkey nearby couldn't stop screeching for food as well. You watched as his stray daughters played with the animals, who warmly accepted them. Suddenly, he felt the need to reflect on himself. He never expected they'd bond so easily. Of course, humans are great at training animals, and perhaps he'd been too rigid with them. Since arriving in this world, he'd been constantly on guard, suspicious of everything, losing some of his former simplicity. You realized he should try to relax more. As he enjoyed this peaceful moment, somewhere in a nearby cave, a glowing eye was watching. It was the snake's eye. Not just its eye, but it also had a full set of razor-sharp fangs, painful to even think about. Looking toward the future, peace didn't seem likely. Meanwhile, in Xiaoqing and Xiaoling's village, the red-tiled roof stood out against the green mountains. Today, just like before, the 2 girls called out to each other, eager to head up the mountain. An old man in the village urged them to stop going up there, warning of the dangers, but the girls paid no heed. The woodcutter noted that since their father's death, they hadn't smiled like this, so he figured he'd let them have their fun. But the old man was still worried. Of all places, why keep going up the mountain? What's so special about it? Well, maybe it had something to do with their father, who just sneezed out of nowhere. How could a tree catch a cold? Clearly, someone was talking bad about him, making his nose itch. You looked around. Such a vast area, yet no sign of Little Red. It had only been half a month, and Little Red had already gotten used to fetching Ziyu's 2 stray daughters, closer to them than to its own master. Little Red, sensing the girls were near, perked up as they arrived, with Xiaoling hugging it so enthusiastically it was no wonder why it enjoyed going to pick them up. The 2 girls hopped onto Little Red's back and rushed back to the willow tree. Xiaoqing felt that Xiaoling was acting a bit dangerous today, with that constant mischievous grin. Xiaoling pulled out a box that smelled horrible. It wasn't shrimp paste. Oh no, it was pure human feces. She proudly announced that it had taken her a lot of effort to get it and brought it for their father to enjoy. Father will love it, right? He'll be so happy. He'll probably pull his roots out to kneel and thank his lovely daughter. As they looked around, they noticed how the sky had suddenly turned gloomy, despite being clear down in the village. The reason? The snake was standing right there, swinging its axe tail. What it planned to do was obvious. After standing there for a while, Little Red and the 2 sisters finally noticed it. The snake, feeling a bit neglected, decided to give them a love tap. A very gentle one, of course, just enough to send blood flying everywhere and get some screams out of them. No big deal. While that reunion was happening, up in the sky, the falcons were zooming around with their thunderous breath, bringing along a swarm of mutated bees toward the willow tree. These bees were unbelievably ugly and equally aggressive. Nope, this won't do. Time for a good spanking, thought Ziyu. The roots shot up high. Though he said spank, Ziyu much preferred smacking things right in the face. Every strike landed perfectly. After luring the swarm there, it was time to harvest them into evolution points. The glowing face glared at the bees, then lashed out with branches, swinging them repeatedly into the swarm. After finishing off the bees, he laughed with great satisfaction. The falcons perched on the branches, calling out as they wanted to say, "Laugh all you want, old man, but pay us already." Okay, I get it. I've raised you all since you had no feathers, and now you're all acting so cheeky. Not long ago, they had pooped on his face, but now all of them had reached beginner stage 7 and were much stronger than before. Next, Ziyu used his evolution points to upgrade the roots to level 2. It cost 100 points. Steep, but keeping points wouldn't help him get rich through stocks, so the upgrade had to happen. He pressed the button to confirm the upgrade, and the effect was immediate. 100 points vanished, and he got a side bonus of labor pain. The roots burst out from the ground, their old bark cracking and falling apart, revealing sleek new black roots. Yu's new gear was long, thick, black, and hairy. And yes, I'm talking about the roots here. They looked strong but a bit gross, probably because he had a fear of bugs. The hair sprouting from the main roots made them resemble a giant black centipede. Even the buffalo stood frozen in place, the wolves were stiff, and the honey badger gaped in shock. The glowing face was drenched in sweat. Every time the roots evolved, the pain made him want to cry. But it wasn't bad enough to kill him, which is why he had been able to unleash all the roots when fighting the snake without any serious issues. Painful, sure, but not unbearable. The evolution exceeded Ziyu's expectations. He stroked his chin with a branch. Now, no rank 1 beast could compare to him. He tested it out to see just how impressive level 2 was. Yu swung his roots far, very far. They reached out as if they were power lines stretching from the city to the mountains. The roots moved in and out of the forest, each time grabbing a different creature. One wild boar was in the middle of confessing its love to the sow it adored. The sow, too, was snatched by the roots. Happiness passed in a flash, and the boar became a sad boy. The roots worked tirelessly, emerging and diving, wreaking havoc all over the forest. Soon, they dragged back sacks filled with animal carcasses, hanging them around the main roots like something out of a hellish scene. But Ziyu couldn't deny the satisfaction. The evolution points kept rolling in. After spending 100 points, he quickly earned back 200. Nothing but profit. Soon, he'd be rolling in wealth. Just wait, axe-tailed snake. I'll come for you soon. But there was no need to search for the snake. It missed him so much it was already crawling back on its own. No worries. He used 100 points to evolve one of the roots into the master root. The master root was 1,000 meters long and came with a life-draining effect. It was incredibly long. Ziyu wrapped it around the area multiple times to make sure he'd always know if danger was approaching. The honey badger was momentarily stunned, but soon resumed its yelling. Calm down. Xiaoling will be here soon to feed you. You've been so rowdy. No wonder you're still stuck in jail. Look at the monkey back there. It behaved well, and now it's swinging from the branches happily. Speaking of which, why had Little Red been gone from morning until nearly dusk and still hadn't returned? You didn't know what was going on, but the snake sure did. It was currently bathing in blood. As Ziyu gazed up at the gloomy sky, nightfall was approaching, and he still anxiously awaited the return of Little Red and his 2 daughters. Something wasn't right. He immediately ordered the lead falcon to search for them. Make sure they haven't been kidnapped and sold to China. Wait, we're in China. Anyway, search thoroughly. Don't miss any kind of traces. Just after issuing the order, Little Red staggered back, and I mean literally staggered. It collapsed with a heavy thud, covered in wounds, large and small, blood dripping everywhere. Yu was shocked as Little Red coughed weakly. It looked like it was just a second away from death. In a panic, Ziyu immediately plugged a branch into Little Red, pumping essence into her. It quickly began to recover. Frantic, Ziyu demanded, "Where are the others? Why are you the only one back?" Then came a loud crash. Yu's eyes widened as he stared at the source of the noise. There, before him, he saw Xiaoqing's bloodied arm dangling lifelessly in the air. His loved one had been harmed, and the fury that welled up inside him was a mixture of rage, disgust, and overwhelming fear. He uttered in a heavy voice, "No." The snake, now much larger and more fearsome than before, had returned, and it came bearing gifts. The most gruesome gift of all was Xiaoqing's body, hanging from its fangs. Xiaoqing was dead. Her face was pale, with no sign of life left. Yu screamed her name, his desperate cry echoing across the sky. But no matter how many times he called, Xiaoqing could not respond. His scream only seemed to amuse the snake, which smirked wickedly. The snake had brought this gift, not to give it, but to torment him. It threw Xiaoqing's body into the air, opening its mouth, eyes gleaming with glee, ready to devour her. Though just an animal, this snake was as cruel and vicious as any demon. It had dragged Xiaoqing here not to eat her right away, but to feast on her in front of Ziyu, savoring the despair and agony it would bring. "You love her, don't you? Then watch me chew her to pieces," the snake seemed to mock. But Ziyu wasn't about to let that happen. Furious, he sent his branches shooting toward the snake. "Drop her right now." The roots extended, sharp and fast, aiming directly at the snake. The snake noticed too late. The branch speared into its body with such force that it toppled backward, causing Xiao Qing's body to fall from its mouth. Yu was now fully enraged. He screamed, "Don't you dare touch her!" Using the branches, he wrapped Xiao Qing's body and pulled her back toward him. Luckily, he had upgraded the branches to stretch 1,000 meters, allowing him to strike the snake in time. Otherwise, he would have been forced to watch helplessly as Xiao Qing was devoured. That kind of helplessness would have haunted Ziyu for the rest of his life. This strike was different from their first encounter. It had pierced the snake's axe-hardened skin, making the snake fearful of the willow tree's power. The snake had evolved by absorbing the essence from the tree last time, growing in both appearance and strength. It had returned to devour the tree and mock Ziyu with Xiao Qing's corpse. But the blow just now made it reconsider. It hadn't anticipated Ziyu becoming this powerful. If he hadn't been so focused on retrieving Xiao Qing's body, he might have killed the snake. The snake realized this was its chance, its only chance. It immediately turned and fled. Just as it predicted, Ziyu didn't care whether it ran or stayed. His sole focus was on Xiao Qing's lifeless body now lying before him. Her body had already stiffened, bruised and bloodied, with a large gaping wound in her abdomen. Yu's vision darkened. He knew Xiao Qing was dead, but he couldn't accept it. He continuously pumped life essence into her body. The system kept notifying him that life essence had been added, but it also repeatedly stated that no signs of life were detected. "Would you like to use additional evolution points?" the system asked. "Of course, damn it," Ziyu shouted. Sweat poured down his face as he silently prayed for Xiao Qing to wake up. Even the animals were howling in distress for her, their roars filled with worry. Yu was as tense as a tightly wound string. He turned to glare with all the killing intent he had, but stayed silent. He didn't stop, inserted his life essence to Xiao Qing. He just kept inserting and inserting. The animals quietly observed every movement of Xiao Qing. Some were so worried, they started crying. Yu continued until his remaining evolution points hit 0. He hoped Xiao Qing would wake up, but she hadn't even been asleep. With the evolution points drained, Ziyu's face darkened, and he said nothing. Meanwhile, in the village, the doctor was treating Xiao Ling, who was in coma, but luckily still alive. But the village's medical skills were too limited. Xiao Ling's attempt to escape had allowed the snake's venom to spread to her vital organs. Even if she survived, she would be in a vegetative state. The village chief and a group of people arrived from outside. They called for grandfather, who asked about Xiao Qing's situation, but they couldn't find her. She might have been eaten by a monster. Upon hearing that, grandfather's face turned pale, and he fainted on the spot. All the events inside the house were clearly witnessed by the head falcon. So that's how it is? Ziyu's nerves were still tight. Xiao Ling's condition? It wasn't looking good either. Even the big brother badger started crying even louder after hearing it. The cage holding the wolves was opened. Ziyu muttered to himself, "I've heard that trees can feel emotions. They wither from being yelled at or insulted, and they can bloom beautifully from listening to music. But a tree being angry? That's never happened before." Ziyu released the animals one by one. If trees had never been angry, today they would be. Yu roared like a madman. It was the first time I saw him open his mouth, full of sharp teeth. He ordered the beasts under his command to unleash all their strength and begin the game of revenge.